I remember having a vision of dancing with Ellen on stage one time when I was on my sister's couch.
Right.
And I told her that in the first interview. I was lucky enough to go on twice. And I told her that in the first interview. And I was just like, you know, I like to bring things full circle. I like to have a vision or a dream. And then actually, even if it's 10, 20 years later, I like to see it come true. Most people, I feel like, just, if it doesn't happen within the first 6 months, they're on to something else.
Right.
I can be like as bored out of my mind doing the same thing over and over to try to do one thing. I think that's what's helped. Everything I do is for a reason too. You know, I try to constantly do things that put me out of the box, that make me uncomfortable, and that challenge me. And talking about masculine vulnerability definitely is a challenge. You know, when I was in high school going into college, my siblings and I made a bet. They all said that I'd be like this drunk jock football player because I was going to play college football. They were like, you're gonna go and be like a frat boy and this and that. And maybe it's part of my ego at the time where I was like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I didn't have a sip of alcohol all 4 years of college.
That's amazing.
Never even felt tempted because I just made that in my mind. I was like, I'm gonna be different than what people wanna put me in a box to be. I just try to learn, constantly learn things that normally people that look like me, who grew up like me, would never do. Because I feel like there's so much richness of life that I would have missed out on had I stayed in this athletic jock core group that, you know, if I'm generalizing it, just kind of did the same thing and talked the same way and lived a certain lifestyle. And I just didn't want to live that life. I wanted to live a life of abundance, of learning, of constantly questioning who I am and if I'm doing things for the greater good or just for myself. And so this topic was really a self-discovery 4 years ago. I got in a really big fight. I started getting angrier and angrier in my life. As I was achieving more and more financially, accomplishments, awards, all the things, the nice things that you mentioned in the beginning, as those were happening, I would find myself more and more triggered emotionally from simple attacks that people had on me, whether it be like online, on social media, or in person. In my relationship, I was very triggered where I would just get more and more bent out of shape and hurt in certain situations and frustrated and resentful. And one day I was playing a lot of pickup basketball at this time. And so over a 6-month period, I was playing a lot of pickup basketball. And I was literally, every time I would go, I would get in some type of altercation. Usually it was extreme verbal altercations, screaming. If anyone ever stepped to me on the pickup courts in the rough West Hollywood neighborhoods.
The mean streets
of West Hollywood, you know, if anyone stepped to me, it was like an instant alpha reaction of like territory, like I own this is my court, don't ever try to talk to me in a bad way, don't try to foul me in the wrong way. And let alone I was doing the same thing to them. So it was like, but for whatever reason, all these things started coming up more and more, and I was getting more and more aggressive at the basketball courts, in relationships, and then I would take it out on the courts, on like 18-year-old kids. You know, these kids weren't even that big, right? And one day, there was a guy who was actually bigger than me, and older than me, and we were going at it like, you know, two silverback gorillas, like trying to just like get their land, you know what I mean? And it got down to a really heated moment where he headbutted me, and it was just like, years of built up tension came out in that moment where I, you know, like superhuman strength came up upon me. It was just like rage and anger. I had zero control over my emotions. I allowed my ego, my masks to own me as opposed to having emotional intelligence and owning the moment. So I think it's starting with having those open conversations. If you can't do that, email and ask people to write down 5 things that you do well, 5 things that you could use to work on, just to get feedback from people. Some things are gonna land, some things aren't, but I think it's important to get that feedback.
What awaits on the other side for the people that do the work?
Freedom.
From emotions?
Freedom from anything that's been holding you back emotionally. Freedom from judgment of yourself, forgiveness, inner peace. The most powerful feelings in the world come on the other side. Now, I'm not saying that you may not slip back into frustration and anger and resentment and all these other things like I still have and work on every month and catch myself. But it's a daily practice to be able to learn how to take it off when my ego's in the way. Even this morning, I got frustrated with someone was getting defensive over texting back, trying to defend myself, and I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, I'm living in this conversation about dropping the mask, and yet I'm still wearing a mask right now because I'm trying to step to this person who's attacking me or whatever I felt like was happening. And when I said, okay, I hear you, thank you for your feedback, I can move on, as opposed to having to defend myself. You know, people are gonna constantly judge us, whether we go after big dreams or do nothing. We're gonna be judged. Either way, if we sit on a couch all day, our parents and our friends are gonna be, you're lazy, do something with your life. If we go chase after the most audacious dreams we have, a lot of people are gonna attack us and try to bring us down. So we might as well go do something with our lives and say thank you for the feedback and move on. Some things will land, other things will just bounce right off. And it's our duty and responsibility to be able to move forward and be discerning of the information we receive, have a close group of people that we really trust who can cipher some of the information and give the feedback that is worthy, and then try to learn, apologize, move on. That's all we can do.
You talked about you have a daily practice.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And maybe give it just like in the context of one or two different masks that either are most frequent for the average person or more frequent for you if that's easier.
Yeah, you know, the structure for me, I was like, I need something that's practical and that's simple that I could read myself and take action on. Otherwise, just writing about theory doesn't do anything for me.
Right.
So at the end of every chapter, we break it down. First, I acknowledge someone who's lived with that mask, like a prominent person. Then I tear myself down of how I've lived with that mask, give examples. So the whole book is essentially putting me down in a way and showing all my biggest vulnerabilities and shortcomings as a man. And then at the end, we break down just practical steps of how you can move forward. So one of these steps could be getting feedback from people closest to you, emailing 5 of your closest friends and asking what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses from their point of view. It doesn't matter, you know, if they're right or wrong about something, it's just getting feedback and assessing the information. I really love journaling. Journaling for me is a way to express my own emotions to myself, which most men, I would say in general, I think the viewpoint is men aren't able to communicate their emotions, right? And it starts with being able to do it with ourselves. How did I feel today? When I got mad at this person, what did it do for me inside? How did that person feel after that conversation?
And is that actually what you're writing down, those exact words?
Different things, different prompts based on different masks. I give different prompts, yeah. But I mean, for me, it's just more of like evaluating my day, like
total stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Not worried about grammar, punctuation, just
whatever. Just, I mean, I can't spell in the first place because I'm dyslexic, so I'm just like scribbling and I can't even read what I say.
And
afterwards.
do you prefer that it's handwritten? Like, do you think there's something more cathartic about that?
I think writing is powerful. Any way to get it out. You know, use technology to your advantage. If you want to voice it on a voice memo on your phone, do that. Any way to communicate your feelings. No one needs to see this. Start with yourself. I like having these honest, open conversations more and more. Like, I was so scared to be vulnerable prior to 4 years, and now I love like making people uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's like, I love just being like, just asking questions that they would never get asked from a guy who looks like me, you know what I mean? And just going there, because why the heck not? Why be surface level all the time?
Yeah.
I think there's a time and a place for everything, but really trying to make myself feel as uncomfortable as possible so I'm never uncomfortable. And the more I do the uncomfortable, it becomes comfortable. So it's journaling, it's asking for feedback, it's meditating where I'm just, you know, in the morning when I meditate, I set my intention. I literally know how powerful my ego is, and that I could be easily triggered to react like a silverback at any moment. Like, it's so easy for me to go to that place if I'm not intentional about the way I want to be throughout the day. So that's why when I'm meditating, I'm thinking about any scenario that could happen today. With my girlfriend, what if she gets upset at me for something that I forgot to do? How am I going to respond? You know, if a team meeting doesn't go well, how am I going to respond? If someone misses a deadline, if someone does this, if someone does, I just try to go through things. How can I respond? If anything happens, I'm going to react to everyone around me. I'm going to take ownership. So I try to get clear on my intention for the day and in any area of my life. And when I do that, I feel like I'm prepared. And I think most people, humans in general, aren't as prepared for these challenges. And then therefore they go back into just wearing a mask. When any situation occurs where they feel attacked, let's put on the mask, because that's what feels natural.
That's a really interesting point. I want to dive into that. Why? Because I so intuitively agree with you. Why at that point is the mask so comforting?
It's just what we're used to, and it protects us, like you said.
Is there structure to the mask? Is there like, well, the mask tells me I should behave like this, so at least I know what to do?
I think so. It's a way to protect ourselves, to not reveal who we truly are. And when we reveal who we truly are, we are susceptible for being vulnerable and being wrong.